Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another Engagement Q&A with Jay. I'm Jay. I'm Javon Howard, Manager of Engagement Initiatives. If you are new here, welcome. This is a program where we answer all of your frequently asked questions on topics related to men as survivors, including understanding masculinity, understanding men's health, understanding men's healing, our social emotional learning, violence prevention, and justice. Today, we'll be discussing the timely topic of digital abuse, image based abuse, online harassment, and sexual exploitation, or also known as sextortion. We are joined today with another expert and wonderful colleague, Tim Woods from the Do It for James Foundation. As a reminder, this episode is being live streamed on YouTube, it's being live streamed on Facebook. So please feel free to utilize the chat features on both of those platforms to share any questions that you have, any comments as we're having our discussion, but also being aware that these comments may be seen publicly and saved alongside our interview. And so without further ado, so we can go ahead and just get into this great topic and have our conversation, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our co-host for today's topic, Tim Woods. Timothy Woods is the executive director and one of the co-founders of the Do It for James Foundation, established in honor of his 17-year-old son. I just want to switch the. There we go. It's very small for me. Established in honor of his 17-year-old son, James Timothy Woods, who died following a sextortion. Turning profound loss into purpose, he and his wife, Tamia Woods, and the other co-founder of Do It for James Foundation have become national advocates for online safety, suicide prevention, and the protection of children from sextortion, sadistic exploitation, as well as childhood sexual abuse material. Through education, community partnerships, and legislative advocacy, the Woods have reached thousands of youth and their families across the country. Their advocacy contributed to the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee unanimously voting to advance federal legislation, the James T. Woods Act, which creates a federal law for sextortion and sadistic exploitation while strengthening accountability for child sexual abuse material. Tim, alongside Tamia Woods, have earned multiple certifications in mental health first aid, QPR suicide prevention training. They have been recognized with numerous honors, including the FBI Director's Community Leadership Award, the Cleveland Cavaliers Difference Maker Award, as well as many others. Tim continues to honor James's legacy by protecting children, empowering families, and ensuring no child suffers in silence. Thank you so much, Tim, for joining us.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing this afternoon?
Can't complain. Can't complain. It's a nice, beautiful day out, even though it's snowing.
Yes. The weather has been up and down for sure for everyone across Ohio. And so we're going to go ahead and just get started and jumping in, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
The first question that I have is, can you define for us what sexual exploitation is? What is sextortion?
So, sexual exploitation is pretty much, a person in having power over someone else. And I'm going to say the bad person having power over a victim. And they're using it for their own means to gain, something of sexual nature. So that could look like an older person, a younger person. Usually is the case, and you get them together, and that person uses something over the victim, to get them to do things that they probably shouldn't do or don't want to do. They use coercion, bully tactics, manipulation. It's a bad thing. So sexual exploitation is something that's usually done to someone to harm them. It is actually it's always 100% harm. There's not usually. It's 100% harm, and it is similar to sextortion. Sextortion is pretty much what my son went through. His was financial, but sextortion is more like bribery. So you're paying a person not to do something that's going to make you look really bad. Or if you flip that around, the criminal or bad person is blackmailing the victim. My son was a victim of financial sextortion. He had a image of himself that he didn't want released. So what the criminals did, they said, well, if you pay us this money, we'll make it go away. Now, that's just one type of sextortion.
Okay.
A lot of other times, sextortion could be a person wanting more pictures of you or more videos of you, some kind of content of you that you don't want released to the public. And the threat is always, we're going to share this with such and such. We're going to expose you to such and such. So, sextortion is a little bit like the exploitation. They tie into each other, but they are different.
Yeah, I can see how that could really be really scary for folks, and impact people's
Yeah.
lives. Like, like if you are sharing an image with someone that maybe you trust or someone that you think that is going to have your back, and then they take that and use that as leverage to get something else out of you. Like, so what you're saying, sometimes to get money, sometimes to get additional images. Do people
Hmm.
ever do like sextortion and gain access to other types of things?
I'm sure they have and they do, but the main things are what I stated. Um, so, for instance, here's one. Say you're in a relationship with a person and you have pictures or whatever that y'all shared with each other, and then you don't want to be in that relationship anymore. Well, that person says, well, you can't leave me because if you do, I'm going to share all of this with everybody, forcing you to stay in that relationship just so that you don't get the shame and embarrassment that would come with it. So it's not always financial or more pictures or videos or content or whatever. It could just be a person forcing you into companionship, and that's just one way. I mean, it's the what people could come up with is amazing. They find one thing and they use it for a million different other things. So
Yeah,
it's not always just black and white. There's always those gray areas too.
yeah, and I think that's definitely elevates how this topic is really relevant to our movement with domestic and sexual violence. Is recognizing like how this not only is it like sexual exploitation and taking imagery and using them against your will to manipulate you, but it can also be used to like force you into relationships or ways of thinking about how survivors may stay in relationships or feel trapped in relationships. So think about different ways of like doing safety planning, for folks and survivors who might be experiencing this is really important. So that actually makes leads me to another question that I have for you. What are some signs or signals that someone might be experiencing sexual exploitation? I would imagine that some survivors might not even realize that what they're experiencing is called sextortion or sexual exploitation. So, like, what are some signs or signals, especially for young men, for us to know that they might be experiencing this type of harassment?
Well, everything is different for everybody. So one sign that you could look at for yourself would be completely different for me because it could be my normal everyday life. So I would say if you're trying to be a person that helps someone, you have to know who it is that you're trying to help, whether you're a friend or you're a parent or a teacher or some type of guardian. You have to know who it is you're trying to help because, um, like with girls, they could go through a hair change and it could be something really drastic, and you would sit there and it'll light off a red flag in your mind. But for the next person, they could look at it and be like, oh, well, last week her hair was green, this week is red. It's something normal. So you specifically have to know who it is you're helping. But some of the signs could be for men or women, hair changes that are drastic or not normal. It could be cutting of the skin. There's signs that's usually visible, but of course, that person might be wearing long sleeves now or hoodies trying to hide their body so that you can't see those things. Is it normal for that person to wear long sleeves and hoodies all the time? That might be a reason for you to ask more questions. If somebody decides not to hang out with certain friends anymore, well, why not? What it happen between you and that other person or group of people to where you don't want to hang out with them? Or if you are hanging out with a whole entirely new group of people, why? What happened to your old friends? What do you like better about these new group? I mean, it's tons of things that you could look at. It's just you have to know who it is you're trying to help. So I tell parents all the time, learn your children, learn their friends, learn who they hang out with, what they do in their spare time, all their little ins and outs of their life. If you're someone who is a friend of this person, you should already know a lot of that stuff too. You should know who their friends are because you're one of them. You should also know what they do in their spare time because a lot of times you're probably with them. You just have to really know a person in order to be able to help them. You can't go in blind and expect positive results.
Yeah, that transparency and that relationship building sounds really important. To yeah, what you're saying is like to know who they are, especially for parents. If we're talking about parents, to be engaged with your children, to be engaged with your youth, to understand what those habits that they have, that their interests, their disinterests, so that way you're better able to identify some of those warning signs. So, what about folks who maybe are advocates or who are working with folks that are maybe not necessarily close to? Like, is this something, the sexual exploitation and this type of digital abuse happen only between people who know each other? Is this something that happens between strangers? How do people gain access to someone to even do this type of thing?
So this stuff happens with everybody. Yes, it does happen with people you know, but a lot of times it happens with people you don't know. Um, everybody likes having a friend or two, right? Nobody likes to be a 100% hermit all the time. So you're going to come across some people that's probably not good to have in your life. I mean, people online, the internet connects everybody 100% of the time, anywhere in the world. So while you're on the internet, you're surfing different pages, you start following certain pages, and next thing you know, you find that you're liking a bunch of different stuff. Well, those likes pop up on the person who owns that page. Plus, the world could click on it and see who liked it, who left a happy face or a frowning face. So all of that stuff just says, well, this person's mentality fits this way. They're pretty much someone that I could go in and take advantage of. Let me make friends with this person. And that's how it starts. It's grooming involved also. So when you find a victim, that victim is someone who probably was already checked out by the criminal before they even knew that they were going to be a potential target.
Yeah,
Perpetrators, they're everywhere, and they do hide their intentions, but it's only a matter of time before they reveal what their true intentions are. So
yeah.
it
And then
doesn't
with
matter
the
where you.
world, oh no, no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it doesn't matter where you are. They will find you if you're on the internet. They'll send you an email or a spam call. I mean, it's people, we get spam calls all the time and spam emails and whatnot. We most of the time just delete them or ignore them. Every blue moon, you might answer one of them just to see who it is that's calling your phone. It's it's millions of ways that people get attacked,
Yeah,
and most of those ways are legal to
interesting.
an extent.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting because we all use the internet, right? We all
Mhm.
so many of us have social media accounts, whether that's Instagram. We're live streaming right now to YouTube, to Facebook.
Mhm.
So we have people who are plugged in virtually. This is like a really big part of our culture and how we stay connected to each other. Now you bring up a really good point. Like everything that we post, everything that we share, whether it's a comment, is it a reshare, our stories, it tells a story about us, about who we are, what we're
Yeah.
interested in, maybe where our mindsets are, even exposing certain vulnerabilities. And so I think you bring up a pretty good point with that maybe not everyone really thinks about. It's like how we use the internet and how we engage with other profiles and other social media accounts, how that sometimes can expose or like enlight for someone who is a perpetrator, right? Someone who's like looking that way. Because I know when I'm just browsing the internet, I'm not scrolling through like, ooh, where are the vulnerabilities I can find in another
Yeah.
person? Like, so thinking about someone who is scrolling through the internet looking for that, searching for a target, searching for someone to take advantage of and exploit. Are there any kind of particular vulnerabilities that people might be looking for when they're looking trying to find a target online?
Well, it depends on who the criminal is. All criminals have different things that they want. But I'm going to say when it comes to children specifically, there's over 500,000 people that log on blind every day, and their sole purpose is to find a way to attack children.
Wow.
Over 500,000. And that's just children. So when you add in adults, you get a different type of animal that's coming after people too. So it's
Yeah.
wild out there.
Yeah. And that makes it even more important to like have digital and media literacy. That brings me, I don't have, so I'm kind of going off script a little bit with this question, but it's like thinking about like AI, right? And thinking
Hmm.
about like these deep fakes. Um, how do you protect yourself really? Like even if you were to change the way you interacted with the internet, if you were to have better privacy settings, we're in a world now where people can generate images of you
Hmm.
from images that don't exist of you. So how does that impact the way that you keep yourself safe online?
Well, see, that just makes it harder because, take two people that's in a relationship with each other. Uh, like my wife and I. If somebody sends her a picture, it has my face on it, and there's notify apps now that people could use to do things to make someone look like they were doing something or somewhere or whatever the case may be. If they send a picture to my wife, she will know that it's not me, but what the rest of the world know,
Right.
because she knows what I look like. I'm sure I have tattoos on myself, but they're not always visible. So if someone was to send her a picture, she would know instantly that, oh, this isn't real. This is, generative artificial intelligence. Whereas the rest of the world might look at that and say, oh my goodness, Tim is a horrible person. Why is he doing this? Or, it's no way that I could 100% protect myself.
Yeah.
I just have to hope that I could go in and tell people, hey, this is not me. And I've never been to this place. I don't know this person or whatever the case may be. I would just have to hope that people would take my word for it and believe me. And if it has to go far enough, I would have to get the law involved to where they would use their computers because, the government, they have way more money and power than all of us normal people. They could go in and tear apart that stuff and find that it's not true, it's fake. But after so long of being, painted as the bad guy, are people really going to believe me after it comes out that I was innocent of
Yeah.
whatever was shown? I mean,
It's
it's,
hard
it's tough.
to backtrack on those type of things when it's released. Not only will it be created without your consent, but it'll be released and
Mhm.
shared with others without your consent. And I can see like how this could be really difficult for our young people. They're the ones
Mhm.
who really live in the internet, right? I grew up in the '90s, and so I was in that trajectory of like just starting. There's young folks who that is their whole lives, what
Mhm.
they are involved in. And young people may not have those tools and those skills to be able to navigate it and be like, okay, I know that this is not real. I know this is not fake. This is fake, and be able to have those conversations with others around them that they trust. That's pretty rare for probably like a high schooler or a middle schooler to be able to have those skills to be able to communicate. So also going off the script a little bit, what kind of tools could we give our young people as far as like prevention that can help them navigate and have those conversations when if they find themselves in a situation where they feel like they're being sexually exploited.
So my wife and I, we travel around the country talking to children at schools. We fill up the gymnasium or the auditorium, and we talk to them and we let them know, hey, you guys don't have to accept what it is that's being placed on you. All you have to do is ask for help. And when you ask for help, go to a trusted adult that start with your parents. But even sometimes kids have told us our parents can't help us. So we say, well, your parents might be not be able to help you, but do you have a favorite aunt, uncle, a grandparent? When you go to school, everybody has at least one class that they like. That's probably your favorite teacher. Pull them to the side after class and ask, hey, can you help me? And tell them what you're going through. You have coaches, you have the principal at your school. I mean, there's so many different people that kids come across. We tell them one of them, they truly do care about you. It's probably the one that you laugh and joke with the most all the time. Because all teachers, some of them you can't really get along with and relate to as a child. But some teachers, they try to, make themselves more human for you. Talk to that person. They're probably in your corner and you just don't know it. It's always ways you can get help. And then on top of that, we also pass out tip cards that my wife and I created, and we've given them out to over 200,000 kids across the country. And on the card, it pretty much tells you like certain steps to take if you do become a victim of sextortion. It tells you stop what you're doing, stop all communication, just don't delete anything, but put a pause on it, block the person, try to make it to where they can't really contact you anymore. Talk to the local police, let them know everything that's going on. There's also a number at the top of those cards that leads to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Because NetMec, they'll help anybody 17 and under, anywhere in the world. They can try to help you as best they can. They help bring people home that was trafficked. They brought people to justice that was doing things to kids. They help with grooming. I mean, they help with all these different things. And we make sure kids know that they are there to help you. And even if you do have something online, there's an app called Take It Down that you could also use. So if you have a picture that is online, you could file a report, you could get it taken off. NetMec and ICAC, which is the Internet Crimes Against Children, every state in America has one,
Okay.
and they will go and they will fight for you. Kids, they know nothing about any of these organizations until the problem comes about. So my wife and I, we try to go to them first, talk to them, tell them, hey, your parents, they're your biggest advocates. Use them. They have a wisdom that you don't have yet. They know things that you just possibly can't know. Talk to them. They can help you. And after you talk to them, have open conversations because we tell people you have to be honest in order to get the help that you need. A lot of times, parents, they hold information and don't really talk to their kids. So after we're done talking to the kids at schools, we have a separate meeting where we talk to the parents and we talk to them about how they could go about helping their children. And we even get on them a little bit. We tell them, hey, by a show of hands, how many of y'all have a secret that your parents today still don't know? And all the parents, they raise their hand. And then we tell them, well, if that's the case, why would you think that your kid would come to you if they have a real serious problem? You have to find a way to bridge that gap so that they have more trust and faith in you to want to talk to you. And it's an eye opener for parents also. And it's all these different things out there that they will help. ICAC, NetMec, the FBI gets involved, local police, your sheriff. I mean, it's a big organization out there. I mean, we even tell kids about 988. If you feel
Yeah.
like you want to hurt yourself, this number right here, they will talk to you. They will help calm you down, get you help. They'll get you what it is that you need. The number that we give for NetMec, they also can do the same thing. If you feel like you're in a very bad place, either that number at the top of the card for NetMec or that three-digit number 988, call them. They'll figure out something to help you. And we tell kids they're there 24 hours a day, every day of the week. All you have to do is call. Four easy words. Can you help me? It's
Yeah.
not that hard.
Four easy words that prove time and time again can be so difficult for anyone to
It is.
and to utter. I appreciate you listing so many resources because I don't know if most people even know how many like resources and organizations and programs that are working together and working to collaborate to prevent this, to work with children, to work with our youth. So that's very important, and thank you for the work that you do, not only engaging the young folks but also having like conversations with parents. Like
Mhm.
I think that's a great activity to do. The like how many parents have secrets from their parents that they still don't know. It's like very realistic, right? It's like put yourself in your child's shoes a little bit on like when we ask young people like just go talk to an adult, go find someone, just open up and just share. Like I hope that we all really mean that, right? That we
Mhm.
can be that person to be safe for them. And so you mentioned something that has me wanting to go to this question. Again, like this is a world for a lot for our young people, our generations that are up and coming that are very involved with online. Why don't they just simply block people? I hear that all the time, like when we're talking about like cyberbullying, when we're talking
Yeah.
about online harassment. What do you say to people who say like, well, this is a non-issue, the sexual exploitation of young folks can be easily stopped if they just blocked them, if they just deleted that person. What can you give us a little bit about why that's not as easy and what goes on inside the mind of someone who might be experiencing sexual exploitation?
So it's a lot. If someone is a victim, just take whoever right now, they're a victim. They're going through this stuff. They're being attacked. They're being harassed. Well, you say, well, just ignore them, block them. Okay. So you block the person, but then we all get spam calls. Those spam calls pretty much come from the same 4 or 5 centers across the country. All they're going to do is just generate another email or another phone number and just keep attacking you. So you pretty much have to say something to someone or just shut everything off 100% to where you just have no access to the outside world digitally. But that's not realistic either. So say something. Go to your local police and say, this is what's going on. And if your local police has been doing their homework, they'll know exactly what it is. And they'll say, okay, and they'll collect all the information and they'll give it to the FBI or they'll give it to ICAC and they'll do their investigation with the resources that they have. And they can find out who it is that's attacking you. So just don't delete anything, but turn all that information over to the authorities. Let them do all the hard work for you, and it'll be a big relief. Because if you're being attacked, you're probably being mentally tortured too. You're going through something that you've never went through before. You want it to stop. You're a victim, whether that word crosses your mind or not. You're a victim, and you don't want it to continue. You have to be willing to just ask for help. I tell kids, if you're going through something, you want it to stop, you don't want to go through it for the rest of your life, you have to be vulnerable one more time and just ask for help. So go to your parent, go to your law enforcement person. Most schools have a SRO nowadays, or a guidance counselor on staff, or someone that you could talk to. Go talk to that person. They will help you. It's actually their job.
Yeah.
So you just have to be, can you help me please, Mr. Such and such or Mrs. Such and such? And they'll say, well, what's the problem? They'll sit you down, you'll explain it to them. You don't have to go into too much detail because right away, an adult with the wisdom that most of us have will realize, oh, this is such and such. This isn't good. We need to get, this other organization or person involved in this. They can get it taken care of. Kids just don't know what's available to them.
Right. That makes so much sense. Um, in reality, it feels almost like there's a lot of shame and internalized blame that maybe folks are dealing with. Like, so when you say the word victim, so we know that most men and young men, do not identify with the term victim. Like, a lot of men and young men see any type of, maladaptive behavior toward them, any kind of criminal behavior that they experience simply as like just a misfortune.
Mm.
It's seen as something like, oh, that's something that happened, that sucked, that was bad, that was unfortunate. But they don't see it as like, oh, I was victimized by a crime. They don't see it as like this is something that is criminal, that I'm being attacked and I should defend myself and I have the right to defend myself. And so you saying that is actually really important for people to hear. I can imagine there's a lot of that shame that people have that they bring with it because like, well, I set the images in the first place, or I set the content, or I made that content with that person. Like, am I the one who's still at fault? Do I have any right here to really like push back or defend myself? And so I think what you're saying is really important for folks to understand and to hear.
Well, one thing about that. So it doesn't matter how old you are. A crime can happen to anybody at any time. We've seen people as young as 8 years old, male, that were a victim. We've also know, I mean, just recently here in the paper, we was reading about a guy, he was like just over 70, who also was a victim of this. And the younger people, they don't know what is going on exactly. They don't know that they're a victim. Their minds is just still learning how to process information. But the older gentleman, he knew he was a victim, and he even pretty much admitted there is a shame and embarrassment that plays along with that. Also, that makes it to where people don't speak up. So if you have a victim, no matter what gender they are, if it's a 30-year-old, I mean, a 30-year-old white woman, chances are she's going to not say something because of whatever reasons. And out of everybody who's victims, less than 30% of white women say something. So when you start adding in the different ages, you start adding in the economic background of the person and all these different things about race and so on and so on, those numbers get smaller and smaller on if they're going to report or not. As a man, a lot of guys, we even asked one time, it was a guy, he was in the class with us because we did adults and kids at the same time. And we asked him in front of everybody, do you feel like being vulnerable for a minute? He said, sure. We said, if you were to be a victim of any sexual crime, would you tell somebody? And he thought about it for about 10 seconds or so. And then he said, no, I wouldn't. And we asked him why. And he said that he felt like if he was a victim, it was because he did something wrong. He didn't protect himself. And this is a fully grown man. And if he's feeling like he can't protect himself, chances are he might not say anything. And so on and so on about all the other men out there. If we feel like we can't protect ourselves, there's going to be some shame and embarrassment attached to that. We probably would be less likely to speak up.
Yeah, that's especially powerful for men because we're often told like we shouldn't be asking for help. We
Yeah,
should be seen as weak. We're supposed to be strong, supposed to be powerful, supposed
we
to.
got to handle it, pick ourselves
Yeah,
up by the bootstraps, get it done, don't
exactly.
complain. All that stuff that we was told growing up. Yeah, it's
Exactly.
negative. It's a
You
mindset
grow up
that we
with
have to
it,
move from.
and then when you experience something like a sexual crime or a sexual trauma, that messaging sticks with you. Where it's like
Hmm.
I wasn't strong enough to protect myself, or like that shame of like I should have done more for myself, and me taking it on the chin and sort of just like sitting in the victimhood of it, right? Is me being strong, is me handling it versus like asking for help,
Yeah,
going forward and stepping forward and reporting it, or letting more folks know about your experience. Like there's a lot of strength and power in that, more than just like having to hold it on by yourself. So there's multiple truths here that are working at the same time
yeah.
that keep this kind of thing going as underreported as it is.
Hmm. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's so much to everything. For a person to go through something, it's already traumatizing to them. It doesn't matter who you are, male, woman, old, young. Everybody goes through something. Everybody processes information differently. Everybody handles things differently. If you're going through something, and no matter what it is, if it's hurting you, you got to get it to stop. The only way to really get it to stop is to do something about it. And one of the best ways to do something about it is by opening your mouth and letting the world know, hey, this is what's going on. Because people who do bad things, they do them because nobody's stopping them from doing it. So if you have the pretty much a green light to go out and victimize somebody, you know why not, if that's in your nature to do so? That person that's the victim, they have to stand up and say, we don't want this. Something's got to stop. Something's got to give. Something's got to change. We got to, change a mindset across the board for everybody.
Yeah, it takes a. That's something I'm definitely taking away from this conversation is that it takes a village. especially for something that we're all so like deeply connected to. It's so easy for anybody to be pulled into this, to become a victim, to be exploited online. And so I'm really learning, like, it takes a village for all of us to really have more open communication, more transparency around this type of issue, more digital and media literacy, and thinking about how do we hold people accountable. And I'll get to that in a moment. So a couple more questions that I have for you. Can you speak a little bit more about how policy can shape and support prevention efforts?
Policy supporting efforts. So you have to come up with something. The politicians, they have to come up with something that says, hey, this is what we're going to do going forward. And first, you have to create a law that says this is or this isn't legal. After that's done, then you got to say this is what the punishment for this is if you're going to break this law or policy or whatever it is. And from there, you have to be willing to enforce it. A lot of times, how many people do you see speeding on the street all the time? It happens, probably 80, 90% of the time, somebody is always speeding when they're traveling. But cops, they'll give you a small grace period to say, all right, this person slowed down after this amount of time. I'm not going to pull them over. Or they was only going this much over the speed limit. I'm not going to pull them over. We got to figure out where the line is to where we're going to say 100% we going to enforce this. That's every policy, no matter what it pertains to. So as long as you got that in place and you got people willing to enforce it, criminals, they'll back off on doing a lot of the things that they do. But even still, when policy or law is enforced, it has to come with a punishment that's strict enough to where nobody else would even want to attempt it. And that's, I think, where one of the main problems is in our society. People get too many slaps on the wrist for the things that they do, making it to where other people say, well, if I'm a little smarter about it, I won't get caught. Instead of saying, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do this at all. So,
Yeah. the
policy.
the root causes of violence. I always talk about transformative justice and restorative justice, and I always talk about being a radical revolutionary. And, quoting Angela Davis, that radical means grasping at the root. So it's like at the end of the day, right? It's about like how do we create a culture and create systems that even if someone thought and they wanted to and begged, like, I really, really want to be someone who abuses people online, that no matter how badly that they wanted to do something like that, we have structures that prevent it. We have structures that stop that. We have an institution and a culture that truly holds them accountable and changes that trajectory of like, why do you need to do that? Why do you want to do that? What needs aren't being met? You know, how do we really build accountability for these actions of power and control and all the different ways that people exercise power and control, particularly through like this digital world.
So I was always taught ever since I was a kid. I learned that it takes one generation to change a mindset.
Mm.
So that right there is part of the problem because it takes so long to change the overall mass their mindset. We need to start at home with children while they're young. We need to tell them certain things. Stand up for yourself, have a voice. I remember when I was a younger child, we walk into a room, we say hi to everybody, and that's all we said, and we go sit in the corner somewhere. That nowadays kids are more open to come into a room full of adults, say hi, and have a full blown conversation. You know, that was unheard of when I was a kid. I grew up mainly in the '80s as a young kid, and I I probably would have got something thrown at me if I did that. But today it's different. So just from when I was a kid to now as an adult, there has been a change. Now from today going forward, we have to still keep doing things that promotes change. We have to let kids know, hey, this is the right way to do things. This is the right way to think, and all these different things, so that as they get older, because they're the ones that's taking over the planet as we age out, they're going to be the ones that's going to be putting in place all of the mindsets and whatnot going forward. They're the ones that's going to be creating all the laws and policies and traditions and all those other things that people are going to hold on to for their upcoming years. We have to put it in place now so that as they grow, it's already ingrained in their minds. This is the way to think. This is what to do. This is what not to do. This is what to do if this happens, and so on and so on. You know, it's a time thing.
Yeah.
You know, we look at all the politicians we have, all the senators and all the people in the upper government. They're all older people for the most part, like 90% of them. You don't see any senator that's 20 years old, do you? the, the president has to be 35 just to be eligible to run. I mean, it's all these older people making all these decisions for younger people, and then we expect them to also make these policies and laws and stuff that takes us into account when they're made. I shouldn't say us because I'm considered an older person now, but but we have to change the mindset. So going forward, people are more, like, okay, I'm going to write this policy and put it in place, and it's going to work for everybody, not just for me to feel more comfortable around you. It's going to work for everybody so that we're all comfortable around each other. That has to happen, and it starts at home when kids are young, learning from their parents. Because the things that you notice about people, they're usually stuff that they grew up with. So the parents, they're not the parents, guardians, whether they're in foster care, whatever. Those people that's in control of these child's lives, they're the ones that we have to look at first and say, this is how we need to do things.
Yeah. More of that parenting education and guardianship education can help with, guiding our youth toward that future. You're absolutely right. The youth are the future, right? That's how everything continues
Mhm.
to keep going. It's about like making sure that our future is taken care of, that we are building in those institutions and organizations that support their growth. Uh, yeah. And so I have another question. So before we break to see if there's any questions coming in through the chat, I did want to touch on more prevention. And so this whole document, this whole program that we do is particularly for advocates and for prevention specialists who work in anti-sexual violence, who work in the movement toward ending sexual violence. Is there ideas that you have that you can tell to someone who does this work, someone who is working with survivors, what can they do to hold people accountable? What can they do in their work to end this type of abuse?
Well, to hold people accountable, like I said, you first that's the law enforcement. They have to be willing to go out and actually do their job. Sometimes, it's not going to be where a police officer or a sheriff just drives up and they could visually see what's going on. Sometimes they have to do that investigation and put in those long, hard hours. So it starts with them. They need to be willing to do the hard work to make sure that the community is safe. After that, you know, I already said the people who make the laws, the lawmakers, the politicians or whatever, they have to be willing to make a law that says this is what it is, no gray area. Take out anything that leaves a gray area. Because when you have a gray area, that creates loopholes. And then if you got enough money, you can find a lawyer that's good enough to go out there and get around that loophole to get you off. We don't want that. We want people who do things to be accountable for those things that they did. Because there's no way that any crime is going to be 100% eradicated. That's wishful thinking. But we could get that number as close to zero as possible. And by doing that, it makes the world a better place. But law enforcement has to be willing to do the investigation and put in, the hard work. The lawmakers have to be willing to write the laws and make it clear cut, black and white, no gray area in the middle, so that those loopholes don't exist. I mean, it's two things. It makes it real easy to hold somebody accountable when they can't wiggle out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And it really is about, working together and having those collaborative responses,
Mhm.
taking this seriously. It's like it's not just, again, like just block them, just forget about it, just look past it. Like this is a serious crime that really impacts people's lives in very serious and impactful ways. Um,
Yeah, you
and
got
I
to
guess just
work together.
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, we got everybody. You have all these different organizations, not just in this state, but in every state around the country. We have all these different organizations whose main goal is to go out and provide some type of resource.
Hmm.
Find somebody who has a similar goal, work together. They say, you know what? I like what you're doing. I saw how you handled that one case. Can you tell me more about what you do? And after a conversation, you might find out that you and this other organization, y'all do the exact same work, or y'all do work that touches on each other. Because our foundation, we work with human trafficking organizations. Uh, Turns out we have a lot in common. And people don't realize how much they have in common until they actually sit down and talk. But people are so busy, they just hear something and say, "Oh, that's nice," and they keep on going about their day.
Yeah.
We all have to be willing to take a little extra time out so that we can help make the world better. Is what's a 5 minute conversation?
Yeah, I talk about that all the time in my training as to how all these issues are intersectional. I hope that folks can see the through lines with all these different topics and subjects that we discuss with the Q&As, with my additional trainings that I do. Like all of these things are interconnected. Human trafficking, I can see very clearly those lines of how that is connected to sextortion and sexual exploitation, because that's exactly what human trafficking is.
Yeah.
It goes through the same processes to get access to targets, to exploit them and to maneuver them into spaces that are non-consensual for them, and to try to get that exchange out of them. And so it's very similar processes. I can definitely see how those are overlapping, how this overlaps with men and like the way that they view themselves and how we are socialized men. And there's so much shame around the way that men and boys have to show up in the world. Like you're not man enough, you're not masculine enough. There's so much around that prevents those help-seeking behaviors from manifesting. How that connects to pornography use, and like how that connects to sexual exploitation. Like there's so many different intersections that overlap, and if all of our work could see that, and we could bring these people and bring people together more often, we might be able to see gaps and barriers and places that we didn't see before that can actually set us free at the end of the day. And so I really appreciate you bringing that up as well, because like that's something that not many people fully understand. It's like this work needs to happen in collaboration and not so much in competition with each other.
You know what? You just reminded me of something. So I want to make sure that when people are listening to me talk, I'm not saying that men shouldn't be men. I still believe that a man should be able to go out and do a few push-ups and, build stuff with their hands, all of those different things. But when I was saying change the mindsets, I want to make sure we still make men men and starting from a young age. So you should still be able to go out, run and jump, fall and get up and brush yourself off, play in the dirt and mud, all of those things that we do as kids. So keep doing that while doing that other stuff also.
Yeah, it's about building that emotional intelligence and building that social emotional learning with people to be able to navigate, tough topics and be able to have those open conversations and be vulnerable. We can
Yeah.
all be strong men and still have that space to be vulnerable, especially with people that we love, people who love us, who wants to show up to support with us, especially during times when we're in trouble. And that's something that we want to make sure that all young men and all men understand. You can come forward. Being vulnerable does not make you weak. Being vulnerable means being vulnerable. You can be strong and powerful and still be a man, while also admitting that sometimes, you might have had an experience that was uncomfortable, that you might have had an experience that you need that assistance and support for your healing and recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we're going to pause just for a moment. For any folks who are watching, um, feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat. I know we have folks tuning in both on Facebook and on YouTube. And so if you go into the comment section and just submit any questions that you have, any comments that you have, Tim and I are here. We're more than happy to, answer those and just get to a little bit more conversation about that. We have about 5-10 minutes left with time together, so we'd love to hear from anyone who's watching. We'll just give a moment's pause for that. But yes, thank you so much, Tim. While we're waiting for any additional comments or questions to come through, I want to give you an opportunity to, if there's anything else that you would like to add, if there's like a closing statement, a closing comment, uh, one thing that you really want to make sure that we all walk away with, what is some closing words you can give us?
One thing for everybody to walk away with. Well, mental health. I'm a big proponent of mental health. I think we all need to take care of ourselves better. I always say, therapy. Go check out a therapist. You might not find anything wrong with you, but just talk to somebody who is trained, of course, somebody with an unbiased ear, and just sit down and have a conversation with them and ask them, just to talk to you and see if they see anything that you might not notice, because you can't self-diagnose yourself. Doctor will tell you, I can't operate on myself. That'd be insane. So just sit down and have a talk. Learn something about yourself that you probably didn't realize before, just to see where your mind is, and take better care of yourself, because without your mind, your body will fail. So be prepared. Talk to somebody. Be honest, be open, and be prepared to hear something that you might not like.
Yeah.
Simple.
Thank you so much. This is our we run a little ad for BetterHelp across the screen right here. Yeah, like definitely seek therapy, counseling. Thank you so much, Tim, for your time today. I know that I learned a lot. It was a really great conversation. I hope that folks who were tuning in, we had a lot of folks kind of come in and out for this Q&A. So I hope there was a lot of information here that folks can take back to their programs, can take it to their friends, to their families, and really understand, like, online sexual harassment, digital abuse, image-based abuse, sexual exploitation. These are real issues. They are impacting our young men and our boys. They are impacting our young women and our girls. They're impacting our adult men, our adult women. Like, it's just like a community, thing that can happen to anybody. And so to have more information, more awareness about it is so critical. We all use social media. We all are online. We all email. We're watching this on YouTube and Facebook right now. And so we're very much plugged in. And so it's good to have more information about this. So thank you again, Tim, for your time. We're going to start moving into our closeout. And then hopefully we'll see you all the next time. And so here, you check out this QR code. This is where you can find my engagement training and technical assistance form. If you scan this QR code and scroll to the bottom of that form, you'll find space where you can submit any of those frequently asked questions for our next Q&A. Our next one won't be until this summer, June or July. We'll be discussing parenting and fatherhood, and how we can get more men involved with their families and having those type of conversations around survivorship and trauma. And so feel free to scan this QR code, and then we'll see you all next time. Thank you so much, and take care.